came, there was a, well, that makes sense. Thanks, Kyle. When the need came, they kind of brought it in then, and until that point, Ryan was like resistant to it. And I'm not saying that's the right answer for everybody, but so the next question I want you to think about is: does a company need to have a mission, vision, value? Why or why not? Do you need to have one?
I feel like, I don't know if, are you asking for opinions already or no?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
I feel like it becomes a lot more important as a company grows when there's more people involved, more resources, because values, mission, vision, it helps you to organize it all to better, to make out of it. At a smaller stage, I feel like it won't kill you not to have those. I think there's people who are able to generate good money, generate good outcomes early on without these.
Definitely. Absolutely. I think Ryan said he got to like 50 people or so, right? Before he, he got to like around 50 people before they started to do this. And it came out of a need that somebody else in the team had. And that's when they really started to put this down. And so I think there is a need for them in certain contexts. And we're going to dive more into that today. But yeah, it's just important to think about, like, is it important? Why is it important? Do they need them? So just jot down some notes to that, and just we're going to revisit these kind of questions near the end. The next one is kind of along those lines. When should a startup create their mission, vision, and values? Is it something you create right at the start? Is it something that you create, like Ryan did when you're at 40 or 50 people? What are let's hear from somebody. Let's hear from Braden B. When should a startup create their mission, vision, and values, in your opinion?
I think if you have like a grand ambition for what you want to create, it's important to have kind of a North Star to be able to attract resources, like early talent. I don't think it's important necessarily if you have a random e-commerce business that you're just kind of selling some random product. But I think if you have like a big kind of ambition for what you want to create and you want to attract talent at some point and attract resources and funding, I think at that time it's probably important to have a mission, vision, and also a good way to like kind of set a North Star for yourself as well and keep you motivated and on the right path.
I definitely agree. Right, where it's like, I think a key point there that you kind of mentioned is, I think it's very dependent on like what kind of business you have, right? So it's like in my background, I came from like the impact world, like social enterprises, right? Social impact and doing that kind of stuff. And it's almost where we started, right? Was our mission, vision, values, like, or not value, but mission, vision, right? Like that's normally the driving factor behind it. You have this like bigger thing, this impact thing that you're trying to do. And so that really starts it. But like, I was just out of curiosity when I looked and I checked Vessi, and Vessi has a mission and vision, which makes sense given like the size that they are and what they're kind of doing and certain things there. But the puzzle company Odd Pieces doesn't, right? Like, why would a puzzle company like Odd Pieces, like, why would they have a mission? I mean, they could, and it might be useful if they're like developing other products and things, but you nailed it right there. It was like, it is more important for other businesses than it's more important for some businesses than in others. And so at the end of the day, the answer is, should you care about it, right? Like, you're an entrepreneur, you have 1,000 things that you have to worry about. And at the end of the day, you have to like make these decisions on what you're putting your most limited resources into, which is mainly your time. And should you care about it? And when should you care about it? And what is the impact of it? And that's kind of what we're going to explore a little bit today. We're going to get into like how to do them well, because most people don't do them well, in my opinion. But when just kind of like go through it and just do it. Because what we're doing here with LOI, and I think this is an important note, is that these are just tools in your toolbox, right? And it's not to say that these are things that everybody needs to do right away. But this just gives you a bit of like another tool in your toolbox. Is kind of what we're focused on today. so that when the needs come, when certain challenges come up, when these things occur, you have just like you have like a bit of a tool already on how to do it and do it well. But only use it when it's needed. Only you like, it's just like, don't pull out a saw when you're trying to hammer a nail, right? Like if you're whatever you're trying to get more customers or do certain things, like mission, vision, values necessarily isn't the best tool to do that. And so what we see a lot of founders do is a lot of times founders will just do a lot of things because they feel like they have to. Right? Like they'll create social media accounts, they'll write blog posts, they'll try to be active on these things with really no intention. They'll create mission, vision, values. They'll like, they'll do these things because they see other companies, like successful companies doing it. And they kind of feel like you have to, but and then it ends up just being like a waste of energy and time. And like I've said this before, strategy is not what you do, strategy is what you don't do. And so really what it is when the need arises for you, when you're strategic about it, when there is a challenge that you're trying to overcome, whether it's, like we said, raising money or recruiting key staff members or things like that, that's when these tools become valuable and you can implement them then. Until that challenge, like start with the challenge and then do mission, vision, values. Don't do mission, vision, values and then be like, oh, it's ready when I need it. It's like, do it and like have it ready for when you need it. So that you're able to, use it as a tool going forward. So I think the answer to that question above is only when it's useful, right? Only when you're like, this is the challenge or problem that I have. This is my hypothesis for how I'm going to solve it. I'm now going to go test that, right? That's all you're doing as an entrepreneur is what's the bottleneck? What's the problem? What am I testing? What are the tools that I'm using to do that? And so with that, let's start high level with what a mission, vision, values is, right? So that's just like framing for this thing. It's not something I'm recommending everybody go do, but I just want to give you a framework, some best practices and some easy shorthand ways to remember it and how to do it well so that it's like not a big thing when you do it. So basically it can be like the core of your work, right? It can be a core of your identity. It's hard to do these early on because your identity changes so much, like in the first few months. So I highly don't recommend doing this in your first year. You can maybe like jot down some thoughts or ideas on it, but like don't like sink hours and hours into it and then dump it on a website and, like put all this effort and time into it because you're really just pivoting and like finding that path. But your mission is what do you do and do well, right? What your values are, your core beliefs that show up in your culture and your decision making. And I'm going to go obviously way more into depth into these. And your vision is where do you want to go, right? So these are kind of like the initial questions you want to look at while you're starting to set these out. And so why does this matter to customers potentially, right? Where it's like, well, because customers don't buy products, customers buy solutions to problems, right? And so if you have this mission to solve this problem, that's much more like that a mission that is aligned with how I see the world or a vision, right, is going to resonate with me as a customer and stand out much more than your product feature, for example, right? Because I don't care about your product feature. I care about my problems and I want to know how you're going to solve my problems. Which who remembers rule number 1 from my top 27 tips or whatever it was? What was the first rule? Anybody, or the first tip? Does anyone remember what it is? It's the best tip. It's the number 1 thing entrepreneurs need to get right. Does anybody remember? Tip number 1. Kyle.
Yeah.
Do you know what it is? It's a long time
ago. It's somewhere in my notes. If you were just to remind us all.
Yeah, it's the tip number 1. It's not about you, right? And a lot of founders make it about them, right? And this mission, vision, values is, again, it's not about you, right? It's about like your customer and your team and all these things. Like it's not about you. It's about your customer. It's about making it about them, right? And so this is just a good transition to like some bonus content that is important for this because again, a lot of people make this about them and kind of their thing when it shouldn't be. It should be something that resonates with your customers. And so as you like write things, you want to write things in a way that's like resonant for your customer. So instead of a peace of mind in a cup, it's your most sleepful, like sleep just a sip away, right? That's what that is. Like it's or with the iPod, it's not the world's first portable digital media player. It's 1,000 songs in your pocket, right? Like it's about making it about your customer, right? And then obviously like avoid, this is just like stuff from marketingexamples.com, right? You want to not only make it about your customer, but make it about your customer in a way that like, don't use landing page words is what they call it, like, right? Like make it like normal everyday words, like make it like sentences that you would say, right? Nobody ever walks up to you and be like, hey, like, did you supercharge your day yesterday? Like that doesn't, no, it's like, how can I supercharge your life? It's like, it doesn't happen. So we see a lot of that, right? And then make it a specific, and these are just like tips for copy in general, but like should be applied to your mission, vision, values, which is why I included them. But it's like, yeah, we've reimagined the online checkout experience, like one click, no passwords, but like make it really specific and unique to you in a way. Because yeah, and make it like I included this quote too, because it's like, again, it's not about you, it's about your team and your customers. And that's where the mission and the vision like really comes in, and values. And so I really like this quote as well, which is like, customers will never love a company until the employees love it first. And so that's where it's like, these are the types of things that people talk about when they say, when people ask us about LOI, like we talk about our mission and our vision. And what we love about it, and that's where the love comes. So that's my tangent. I want to plug marketingexamples.com. If you haven't like signed up for their newsletter and spent a few hours on their website, you're wasting amazing resource. I've learned more about marketing and good copy and how to do that from that website than any other resource. And his newsletter is fantastic. Sorry, my mouse keeps skipping through things. So, all right. So why does this all matter? So internally, alignment in your team, right? Your mission, vision, values guides your strategy and decisions, or like can be the starting place. So we do this session on annual strategic planning, and we have this whole framework. Our entire annual strategic plan at LOI starts with the core of who we are, which is like, what do we do best? What is the value proposition that we do, right? Like what are our values? Like those things, that's where we start before we get into like strategy and decision. It's really that overarching guide for you. And it builds culture amongst your team, especially the values, by the way. That's kind of the main one there. But for externally, it's mission, vision, values are a core element of your brand and your brand positioning, your marketing, and in terms of partnership work, including like fundraising and things like that. Like it's kind of like the most important thing that somebody could need to know about your organization, to kind of give them an anchor in what you do. And global trends are kind of saying that like these types of things are much more are becoming much more prevalent than they ever have been, where consumers, especially Gen Z consumers and other like younger consumers as well, are looking to buy and support companies that have a strong purpose, right? And I think you've all seen stats and stuff like this around this. Like people are looking to support companies that have a purpose, are more likely to recommend them, are more likely to defend them in the wake of criticism. So there's a million stats out there about like how companies that take strong positions like this, or like have a core mission vision, or have more of a purpose, that's something that a lot of people are looking for. So, and then this is the shorthand that I like to use for people. So mission creates your focus, right? What are you focused on? What is the step in front of you? Where are you going? Like where is that next thing? What are you putting your energy into? Your vision provides direction. So that's the overall like orientation of where your focus is, but your focus is much more short term. And then your values define behavior. And that's it. Those are the three things. That's all you need to remember about mission, vision, values. The rest of it is just like details. But like your mission is to help make sure you as a team are focused. Your vision, just make sure you are all pointed in the same direction. which is really challenging to do sometimes. And then your values are how you behave as a team and as an organization, like internally and externally. That's it. So if you took notes, if you're not taking notes, though, if you wrote down anything today, that would be it. Mission creates focus, vision provides direction, values define behavior. That's what they're there for. That's what you're using them to tell the world, right? It's a shorthand to communicate these things. People get way too worked up about them, but it's super simple at the end of the day. So let's dive into some best practices. This, I don't, for those who Seth Gooden is, he's big in the marketing and he's a big marketing guy. And I think mission, vision, values plays a big role in this quote, which he says, which is build relationships with tribes instead of single individuals, right? So it's like the mission and vision is stuff that really aligns with bigger groups of people. And you can find other groups that have aligned mission visions, whether it be partnerships or customer segments or whatever it might be. And mission vision, like alignment with like between those groups is really what it is. And so as an example, LOI has been really focused on our partnerships with the Knowledge Society and Venture for Canada because we have very similar missions and visions, right? We're looking at improving youth entrepreneurial acumen in Canada, and we have an alignment there. And it's super easy to find organizations when they have those things, so we have that alignment. And so that's just really helped with those partnerships. So in terms of prompts, like if you can come back and you want to use prompts, you'll have access to this deck and you want to work through these things. Your vision is, how will the world of blank look like in 5 to 10 years? How will the world of sauces or ticketing or like tech or like CPG, whatever it might be, whatever your industry is, well, how does that look? What do you want to achieve or have achieved by then, right? So that's your mission. So this is like your delta. How is the world different vision, right? Like what has actually changed in the world? What is different about the world? That's a vision. Your mission are things that you accomplished, right? Like things that you focus on, you did. And then your values are like, how did you go about doing it? Did you like steal and cheat and stab people in the back and do whatever it is, or were you honorable or whatever it is? Like how did you act as you got there? Which leads to, when you look at them, the different timing between them, which is your mission is today, right? Like what is your focus today? Your vision can be 3, 5, 10 years, depending on what industry and what you're trying to do. And your values are forever. These are like your core fundamental values to how your organization exists and does that. There's no time on those. If you do put it on your website, these are the 2 most common. And like I said, you will have access to this slide deck, right? So these are just like, this is a good tool deck for just to have if you want to, like when you do this work, if you want to evaluate your work and do those. You can go mission, vision, values. That's probably the most common. But you can do also like vision, mission, values. It doesn't really matter. You just don't see people start with values. It's basically the main takeaway from that one. Other best practices: constantly communicate your vision. So that's a big takeaway from Sharad and his team and his session. That's what they did. They set a clear vision. They reminded themselves like all the time. It kept everybody pulling in the same direction. They had their North Star. We want like trainers that are using our app, their clients are going to work out 3 times a week. That's their goal, and they optimize for that. And that was their main takeaway that they're trying to do. Like, make sure you revisit it as your company evolves. Like I said, in the early days, it evolves quite a bit. And so it's kind of hard to keep up. So maybe wait until you're not changing so much. And then always like try to keep them short and simple. Nobody wants to read an essay. And we'll get into some examples and you'll see the ones that really stand out, or people who've done it well or kind of like renowned for doing it well. Keep it short and simple. So we're gonna dive into the specifics now. Before we do that, does anybody have any questions so far? We're gonna go through each one individually now, just in a little bit more detail. Any questions?
Do you see there being a difference between kind of like your corporate mission, vision, values that you might put on the website or might kind of develop in a formal exercise, and the like your personal set of values that you're bringing into the company, like why you started things, what you're trying to achieve, or is the goal that those look the same at the end of the day?
Absolutely 100% different. So and this, we'll get into this when we talk about values, right? Where it's like, when I built Fresh Fruits, right, the mobile grocery store, we were focused on food access, right? So our whole mission, vision, value, like our mission, vision, everything was based around food access, dignity, right? Because a lot of like the services that were in our space, like food banks and things like that, like are undignified experiences. So like one of our values was like dignified, like dignity, right? We do it in a way that like maintains dignity for the people that we're doing it for. And like our mission and our vision was based around like, you know, if you want to even have the conversation about food security, you need to start with food access. And a lot of communities don't have like healthy and affordable food access. So that's where we're starting. We envision a world where everybody has access, right? So it's like people talk about food security, but like we were a food access organization, which kind of starts, and then food security is more of like an economical kind of like poverty issue, but you can't even have that conversation without access. And so that's kind of what we talked about there. That was the company. My personal one is around, and I was really passionate about that, and I really believed in it. But when we started Fresh Roots, I didn't know anything about food security or food access. My personal mission and vision is around this, like I have a personal like passion around like the intersection between like impact and business, and the next generation of businesses and how they're gonna like kind of like tackle that differently than previously. And there was no good examples of it in Calgary, and so I built one, right? Like that was my mission. I wanted to inspire, I still want to inspire people to like think of business as this like super powerful, awesome tool that can do all these crazy things. It's not just to get rich and to do things. It's like you can fundamentally transform society. So I had a different mission vision, like personally, than doesn't mean I didn't buy in or believe into what the organization, but the organization had a very clear set that it was guided by. But my personal one for why I was there. A lot of times you will see like founders, and that's a unique situation. I think a lot of times you will see founders where there is a huge alignment, like they have a personal passion about something and then they create a company around that. And so that's not necessarily a bad thing, but that by no means do they need to be tied, right? Like sometimes things are just means to other ends in terms of what you're doing. That makes sense. But great question.
Makes sense. Thank you.
Any other questions so far? All right. We're good to go. All right. So we're gonna start with your mission, should you choose to accept it. Anybody else watching getting excited for the next Tom Cruise movie? It's basically just a short statement, why your organization exists. Like this, like I said, it's your focus. Like, why do you do what you do? How do you do it? What do you do? What kind of impact are you creating? Right? It's just to create focus. So that when other opportunities come, you say no to them because it's not aligned with your focus and where you're going. That's mainly what it is, right? Right. What's right in front of you? What is your focus? What are you doing? So we're gonna do an example here. And so everybody get your keyboards ready, and in the chat, I want you to guess who this is. To inspire and nurture the human spirit, one person, one cup, and one neighborhood at a time. That's their focus. That's what they're doing. What are they trying to do? Who is trying to nurture the human spirit, one person, one cup at a time? You put in the chat who you think it is. I'm not gonna pull up the chat. Okay, so we got some people coming in with Starbucks, which is correct. Very well done. Okay, 1 for 1 so far as a group. Let's see how well you do. To accelerate the world's transition to sustainable energy. This is kind of a vague one. Okay, Braden just came out the gate with it. You guys are correct. That is Tesla. Okay, spread ideas. Twitter. Oh, okay. Spread ideas. Also, remember when I said keep it short and simple? 2 words into their entire mission. If your mission is a paragraph, nobody's reading it, by the way. Canva, Colonel, getting closer. Oh, Roman coming in with a late victory. Well done. Ted, ideas we're spreading. That's their whole thing. That's their whole focus. What are they doing? Spreading ideas. Some opportunity comes along and it's like to make merch or something. And they're like, is it spreading ideas? No, we're not doing it. Right. So it's like, it makes it super simple for them to make decisions around what they are and are not doing. Build the best product, cause no unnecessary harm, use business to inspire, and implement solutions to the environmental crisis. Well done, Spencer. You should say it with more authority. You're always putting question marks. Before we like share this though, like this is my favorite one, and I'm also biased because I think of Entrepreneur as a hero. But this really does answer in such a succinct, like, and powerful way all three of these really, really well, right? Why do they do it? They want to build solutions on like that solve the environmental crisis. Like, how do you do it? Build high quality products, cause no necessary harm, inspire others. What do you do? High quality, low environmental impact products. Like, you can answer all three of these questions off of one sentence, which is very, very well done. And that's yeah, it's still one sentence. Like I say, like you'll see a lot of paragraphs, and so they kind of can get bigger, but you nailed that it is Patagonia. This one is a bit longer. Let's see if we still like it. Our mission is to break down the barriers to investing by creating an accessible community for everyone to learn and share. Actually, sorry, you're not this. Promoting financial literacy around the stock market and changing the culture of investing. This is more of an inside one. This is gonna be really hard. If anybody gets this, it's gonna have to. I'm gonna have to throw it to. Oh, Braden.
Is it Blossom Social?
Wow. Okay, Blossom. Braden saves the cohort. You're still batting 1,000. Let's see if you can keep it up. But I think for those who know who know Max did a really good job of it. It answers all three in one sentence. So he did a really, really good job. Okay. So just out of curiosity, right, just to show the power of a mission, I would just share some companies in the chat. A company who you think's mission that I haven't shared aligns with you. What's a mission that you think has stood out, or a company that has a powerful mission that stood out for you that you've come across recently? You need to type your answers in the chat. Disney, Toyota, Happiness for All, Enactus. Yilin, what is it about Enactus that stood out for you?
Like they help university students to foster social entrepreneurship to solve big problems.
Very cool. That's very similar to TKS too, for Clint, who's here, like leveraging emerging technology to solve big problems, right? Like that resonates with a lot of ambitious youth that are like that want to do big things and ambitious. So yeah. Smart Sweets. I don't know if I think it is, that might be their tagline. Cut sugar keeps cut sugar keeps candy. Their mission might be something slightly similar but differently worded, like healthier people or something like that, right? Like that might be what it is. Similar to like Vessi's mission, I read it, is like slightly different. They're like 100% waterproof shoes is their tagline, and then their mission is like a shoe that can do it all, or something like that, right? Like there was something along those lines. So that, like, the tagline and mission are normally the closest tied, because it's just like, it's what you're focused on, it's what you do, right? And so that's where it's like what you want people to think of when they think of your organization. So as you go through your mission, you can ask yourself these questions. Is it simple? Is it inspiring? Is it concrete? Is it meaningful? Is it actually measurable? What is that overall like focus on what you're doing? But yeah, that's another great. Alibaba is another great one too. All right, vision time. Your vision, a statement where organization aspires to upon achieving your mission. So it's inspire, create excitement, motivate. Again, it provides direction, right? It's supposed to be motivating and inspiring and create excitement towards this direction that this world in 3, 5, or 10 years is different, and it's for the better, right? So Tesla, for example, like a world where we use less oil, like we have more electric cars, or you know, that we are more sustainable as an organization, and that's kind of the direction that they want to go. So some finer details on vision, if you ever want to come back and visit them. There's generally 2 types. There's concept and quality. So concept is probably the most common. You'll see it. This is like most companies have a conceptual vision. It's based on concepts, very focused. It can be focused on your customer in a or a future position held by the company. So we can do some examples of those to make people happy. Still batting 1,000, team. Let's go. Who is this? Anybody know who this is? Their vision to make people happy? Could be a lot of people. Erin knows, but she's been in this session before, so she can't say. Let's see some guesses. Nobody has a guess to make people happy. Pixar, Lego, Coke, McDonald's. It's sad that Coke and McDonald's would be. It does sound like something they would create, but I don't feel like they have the right to say it. But you're on the right track. Spencer's close to this first good. Yeah, there it is. Kyle saves the team. Disney, right? That's their whole vision. To make people happy. That's what their whole thing is. We ignite opportunity by setting the world in motion. And by the way, these are a lot harder. Visions are a lot harder to guess than missions, because missions are focused around what they do, and you can companies by what they do. Visions are a lot harder to guess. We ignite the world by setting opportunity by setting the world in motion. NASA is a better answer than the real answer, so I might just give you a point for that, Spencer. Air Canada, you're getting on the right thing, like based on motions. You're in the right thing. Unfortunately, it's Uber, right? Like, sure, you can be the judge, and if you think that's what they're doing, but is it inspiring? Yes. Right? Like, we go back to the questions, like, does it create excitement? Yes. Is it motivating? Is that what Uber is doing? I don't know. Then we can debate that later. Okay, to make commerce better for everyone. So, out of all of the visions so far, which one do you think? And I think there could be an argument here that like everybody who wants to be one, this is maybe more of a, it actually kind of sounds more of a mission than it does a vision. So maybe that's why it's easier to guess, but you guys definitely nailed it. What I really like about this one is this said better for everyone. Like, that's a super powerful one that you'll see a lot, right? Like, better for everyone. Just as a note, as like a powerful thing to include in the vision. But yeah, you're all correct. It is Shopify, 10 out of 10 for everybody. A just world without poverty. This is gonna be impossible. If you guys guess this, I'll be very, very impressed. It's a very large international charity that you may or may not be familiar with. Close. I guess they're not super as popular as they were, but you're on the right, you're on the right vein. But it could be, there's like 10 or 15 different international charities it could be. But yeah, does it inspire? Does it create excitement? Does it motivate? I would say so. I would like to live in a just world. And what's important here is there's a clear delta between there's a clear delta here, and how is the world different, right? It's very clearly picturing this future state of the world, which is a just world without poverty, right? So Oxfam, for those of you familiar with them. But yeah, you guys know that lane. So those are more of the conceptual ones. Quality ones are more focused on, you can have a quality vision, which is more focused on internal goals, where you want to go as a company, and can relate to company culture operations. So I'll include one example. They're not the sexiest, but when you see the company, you'll understand why. To be the world's most successful, important information technology company, successful in helping our customers apply tech to solve their problems, successful in introducing this extraordinary tech to new customers, important because we will continue to be the basic resource of much of what is invested in this industry. Oh, that's a mouthful. I don't know about you. I personally like conceptual ones better. I like to make the world happy, or to inspire. Those things I find more memorable, and I think more resonant. But yeah, Kyle, you're you're in the right thing. It's IBM, right? But if you're IBM, you can have a really lame vision, I guess, because that's just what they're doing. So yeah, that's a rough one. Okay, making the best ice cream in the nicest way possible. Yeah, right. And they've built they're an ice cream company, but they've built this massive following and brand awareness, all because of their mission and vision values. That's all that, because they have such a strong mission, vision, values. They have more awareness of what they are and who they do like on this thing. So yeah, made you at Ben and Jerry's, right? So summary, your vision is sort of like it's a statement where your organization aspires to be upon achieving your mission. So you just can ask yourself, if all of our wildest dreams come true, we have millions of dollars and all of our mission happens and continues to go, how is the world different is kind of the question that you're asking. What is the outcome of your achievements? What is the long-term impact? What transformation lies ahead? And so, yeah, it's very similar. Like if there's is anybody have a vision of a company that has a vision that like they're really like, really resonates with them. If you do, you can post it in the chat. I gotta keep rolling through because I want to make sure we have enough time to get through everything. And at the end of the day, like as a leader, the vision is super important because like when you build a team around what you're doing, your main job becomes where are you going? You're not the one who does the work anymore over time. The more successful you become, the less of the actual work that you're doing. And all the leaders of like big organizations with like tons of people, all they are doing is deciding where they're going. What are the strategic investments that they're making? What is that like where are the market's changing? How are they doing that? And so I think that's just an important thing to note is like that becomes as you go right now, mission, I would say, is kind of like what your core like focus should be. What are you doing? What are you best at? How are you going to be the best at it? But if you continue to find that success and growth, it's going to be like your job is going to transition to where are you going. Let's do values. These are my favorite ones. Okay, your values, the core principles for what your organization stands for, what matters most to you and your team, how do you make decisions, what would someone else say like you represent if you got asked about it, right? It should be a reflection of your team today. It's habits and mindsets that you and your team will work harder to cultivate harder than any other organization. And so one of the best things, and this is like, once you know this, you will never look at values ever the same because this is what most companies do wrong all the time. I see giant murals of values on walls in offices and they're terrible because this is a good reason why. It's like integrity and honesty. Those are not core values. That's what everybody should have. They have to be like unique things that are actually strategic for your organization that you are implementing and like making decisions on to like really highlight as a team, how are you going to differentiate yourself? What is your positioning? What makes you different? And so Airbnb has done a great job of this. They have some awesome ones like there's our embrace the adventure, champion the mission, every frame matters, simplify, be a serial entrepreneur, which is like a joke back to their initial start days when they sold Obama O's and to be a host. And so what you don't see on here are things like integrity, honesty, hardworking, innovation, right? Like those are not company values. Those are just general values and aren't actually useful, right? So for each of them, like they have a direct connection to like how they're doing things within their organization. And what actions, what strategic decisions are they making? How are they changing their product? Like, what does their marketing look like? Like you can actually see their values throughout all of their work. Because at the end of the day, you are what you say you'll do, or you are what you do, not what you'll say you'll do. Not a good one. You are what you do, not what you say you'll do. And this is something that we see like in our world is a big problem because we see things like greenwashing and stuff like that, which I'll get into in a second. But the real challenge here is actually operationalizing your core values and embodying them in your day-to-day work. These aren't things that should sit on a wall and don't mean anything to anybody in the organization. There are things that need to be important in your actual day-to-day work and in actually everybody's day-to-day work on your team that is involved in the organization. A good example of so I wasn't around when LOI's values got created. One of our values, I think, is like something around cultivating innovation or something like that. And it's like, if you were to ask me, like, what do we actually do to like, what strategic decisions have we made to like actually embody that or do that? It's like, it's tougher for me to answer. So it's not a great value. But one of our other values is creating an inclusive and accessible space. And it's like, I can say, well, all of our programming is free and fully remote. we require no equity. Like we include recordings for all of our sessions, right? Like we do all these things. I can actually give you things that have made our programming more accessible and inclusive than most other programming out there. That's an example of a good value that as a team, we've actually operationalized and actually sets us apart and gives us a different positioning or a value proposition to our users. And that's what a value should be, right? That's where it really comes in. And so, yeah, and this is what, if you talk to Sharad or you hear his story, Ryan's story, it becomes harder and harder to do this as you scale. So it's really important that these are things that you invest in. So back to the quote though, around like, you are what you do, not what you'll say you'll do. I think we're all familiar with this, which is like corporations in June, all of a sudden, all of these companies have rainbow logos for a month, but then there's these same organizations like Pfizer and Comcast are also donating money to anti-gay politicians, right? So it's like, it's not what it doesn't matter that they it's called virtue signaling, where it's like, we're so inclusive and open, but then if you look at it, they're like, well, we actually donate money to people who are like anti-gay politicians. And it's like, you just never want to be that. Like, you want your values to be actually things that you as a team embody and do. And so you can try to be more like kind, where like they created their bar and then they actually took the money and donated it, and they don't give money to, anti-gay politicians. Like, they actually back it up with actions to support their values, which is just important. So just a little side note, be more like kind and do not be like Pfizer, as a key takeaway. So let's see if we can remember the key, like just a reminder of what these three things represent. So I'm going to go to Brian. What is your mission?
My mission.
What is your your mission is your what? It's one word.
What I do?
Close. It's your focus.
Focus. Okay.
Yeah. Vision is what? Clint, what's your vision?
Direction.
Nailed it, Clint. And Paige, what are your values?
They define your behavior.
Perfect. Look at that. Bat in 1,000 day. Mission creates focus. Vision provides direction. Values define behavior. Fantastic. So, any questions from anybody on anything that we've covered so far?
It's not a question, but I thought it was really helpful to stop thinking of values as like an exclusive list. You can just kind of assume that honesty and integrity and hardworking are all also on your values list, and it just goes without saying. I think that was a big takeaway for me.
Yeah, it drives me crazy. It's like those just basic human decency, right? Like, didn't think you needed to have to write that one on your wall. Like, honestly, like, right? But what they should be is like, it should be part of your positioning, right? Like, it should be part of your branding and your marketing positioning and things that like you can actually be like, this is a value of ours, and because it's a value, we've strategically made these decisions so that we are now like positioning these things. So it's like, if you have like, it can be things like sustainability, but then it's like, show that you've made decisions to back that up. And it's like, these are actually things that are unique to your company, that is helping, that you are willing to invest in more than anybody else, so that you are the best at that. And so like, that's your like differentiator, and it's part of your value proposition to your partners and to your customers. Honesty is just
Brian threw a Q in the chat there too.
Oh yeah, Brian.
Yeah, so I wanted to know, in your opinion, what are reasons why a company might say that they're this and that, like when their mission, vision, values, but they actually do stuff that's not what they say that they're what they are.
Sales, money, bottom line. That's basically right. Where it's like, you'll see a bunch of companies that like promote, that's like greenwashing, right? it just show like it's just like a marketing opportunity. It's like a brand thing, but then these other decisions that they're doing are because they're optimizing for something else. So it's like if you say that you're like a supporter of the LGBTQ community, like that's in your best interest when you're marketing on social media and stuff like that, so there isn't like a big scandal and you can kind of like virtue signal. But then there's you want a law passed that's in your in your best interest, and that just so happens that the politician that is supporting that is like an anti-gay politician or whatever it might be. Well, then that's not really a value then, right? Like it's just opportunistic is what they are, right? And it bites them in the ass a lot. So I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, that's helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, right. Like it's just
because even in a
there's
small
yeah.
scope, like the company I work for at my day job is a successful startup, but
Yeah.
they like we have meetings of we're under 100 employees, but they keep saying we're this and that, but yet we like, for example, I brought up to Kyle, they say that they're investing in UX, but yet we don't invest in UX. So it's like it's just interesting to see how they could, from the top they would say that we're this, but we're not actually that.
And that's a great example of the importance of doing them and doing them well. Right? Because maybe in 10 years somebody in this room is that leader leading this company of 50 to 100 people, and what you don't want is your staff member in another call with a bunch of people being like, hey, by the way, they don't like walk the walk, they just kind of talk the talk. And that doesn't give me a lot of like faith in that organization and their leadership and stuff. And so yeah, I think that's a great example of what happens when it's done poorly, right? Like if you're going to state something as your value, you better be able to like back it up with actual tangible strategic decisions and actions and investments that you're making.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Docs, query?
Aaron had tossed a question in there just saying, what are your thoughts on including employees / team members in making mission, vision, values?
Ooh.
I can give a bit of a backstory.
Yeah.
Essentially, like when I worked at Kangaroo, it was a startup. I think there's 20 to 30 employees, and it was fairly new startup. So that's why I thought this might be an applicable question. But I remember, I think like 7 of the like head honcho guys in the company, they went away for like a day and they came back with mission, vision, and values. And they made like 30 posters, and they told me and my coworkers to like hang them up all around the office. And none of us like agreed with like the mission, vision, and values of the company. And we just felt like there was such a disconnect between the leading team and the employees because they didn't even ask us our opinions or thoughts on anything. So I'm just kind of wondering, like, when you're starting a company, should you have conversations with your team members regarding, like, because this was the first time they ever did it? Or how would you handle that if like team members are like, I don't agree with the mission, vision, and values that were established without us?
Yeah, and that's a really good it's a really good example of like an issue that can happen when you implement it later on, right? Where it's like that can be an example of like the earlier on you implement it, the better, because then if like there's an alignment there, like that becomes part of your recruitment process, right? Like that should, like, people who are thinking about applying at your company should join and do that. And I think that's like, yeah, it, on one hand, I think it's important that like at the end of the day, you want to make sure everybody on your team is bought into the mission and the vision, right? And the values. Like that's just part of culture, is that you're all pulling in that direction. And so there needs to be some element of making sure that that's like included. And I think they missed an opportunity to like engage their staff in a valuable conversation around like what this is and what is the direction and what are the challenges and those things. And so hopefully, like, I know they ended up failing, right, Aaron? Kangaroo, like they've closed.
Yeah, they went under, I think,
Yeah.
maybe a month or two after they made their mission, vision, and values.
Yeah. So maybe take that as no, I'm just gonna say take that as a sign of what happens if you don't do that. But no, it's not. It's also like one of those things where it is like the bigger the company, it is generally set by the leadership of the organization. But what like a good process for them would have been to engage like the team beforehand and include that insight and those thoughts and feedbacks and things like that. Like beforehand to get like input and insight and see it from different perspectives. That just would have been a smart thing to do. And then before finalizing it, sending it out for like feedback and thoughts and things like that as well, right? So it's like it's still, I think it's something that is generated by the leadership and should be embodied and championed and kind of like they're responsible for it. But there's like opportunities to engage everybody with it like pre and post. And I think like if they just didn't do the process very well, is what it sounds like. So I don't know if that answers. Any other questions, thoughts? Anybody else? Like I said, this is another tool in your toolbox, right? Like maybe you just do vision, like a mission and values, right? Like in your, these are things that you can use to recruit staff, have conversations about strategy, right? They're just tools. And hopefully today you've learned like some best practices and some ways just to like go forward with it and actually make it useful, because having honesty as your value isn't useful. Having a paragraph as your mission isn't useful, right? And at the end of the day, all you're trying to do is take anything that comes at you that's the most useful and just apply it to whatever your current challenge is in front of you. This is just another tool in that box. So if anybody here, as a thank you for joining me on this lovely Friday, if you want to send me on Slack your mission, your vision, your values, like any of that stuff, I'm happy to have a conversation with about you. Like send any thoughts. Feel free to send them my way. It's a topic that I find very interesting and have spent a lot of time on. So if you have any thoughts, feel free to send them to me. I'm more than happy to do that. So I will. We didn't have to do a breakout today because we are such a small group. So I just want to show you the GIF that was at the end of the slide because Jim Carrey is hilarious. All right, I will stop the recording.